If you can find an environment where other people are exposed to other people who are not raised like them, and the leadership embraces it, it teaches those folks who have never been exposed how to be inclusive in a way that they didn't even know.
Welcome to the Excellence Project. In today's episode, I have longtime friend and top network marketing earner, Darnell Self. He's going to share lots of stories about upbringing, entrepreneurship, building huge teams, building great culture, building an amazing brand. We talk about everything you could possibly imagine. So with no further ado, let's jump into my conversation with Darnell Self. Darnell Self.
What's going on, Eric Worre?
How you doing?
I'm amazing, man. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. How long have we known each other?
About 20
what was the year?
About 25 years, about 1997.
97.
Yep.
Yeah, 25 years.
Yep.
How weird is that?
It's crazy.
We're starting to talk in decades now.
I know. A quarter of a century, man.
Yeah. And for those listening, Darnell is one of the leaders in network marketing that is extraordinary in his ability to build culture, to teach skills, to build around events, a whole bunch of things that are necessary for top earners. Perseverance,
Yeah.
consistency.
Yeah.
You've gone through a lot of chapters, a lot of ups and downs through your business.
No doubt.
You've been with your company for how long?
24 years, will be 25 years in a few months.
Yeah, almost 25 years.
Yeah.
Been enticed, I'm sure, and approached, I'm sure,
No
by
doubt.
everybody in the world.
No doubt.
Said, hey, we got a good thing over here. And you're like, no, I'm going to stay the course.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about all that. But, in this conversation, I want to talk about, how you came up, how you got introduced to network marketing, what was your past before that, your network marketing early experience, because I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And then, growing into a mid-level leader, growing into a high-level leader, and what were the lessons learned along the way?
Yeah.
Whether it was people or, your own personal programming or habits that you need to develop, how you've navigated all of this with your wife and family, all the different things that you've learned along the way, because I've admired what you've done for a whole bunch of things, including how you've built around your culture. How you built your culture so strong.
Yeah.
I teach a lot of people nowadays how to build a culture.
Yeah.
And they're like, what does that mean? Well, it's a couple things. One is when people think of your team or your group or your organization, what comes to mind?
Yeah.
So you got a whole bunch of things that come to mind that your culture, when they show up in a room,
Right.
they show up different. And that wasn't by accident.
Yep. Very true.
The culture around events, the culture around edification, the culture around work ethic, a number of different things.
Yep.
So for those ready to learn all of these different things and what it can mean for their business, that's what this conversation is going to be about. So you're a top earner in network marketing, but that wasn't always the case. You didn't just come out of the chute, became a superstar entrepreneur right away.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
In Maryland, about 10 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. We call it the DMV, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. So I'm literally 10 minutes from D.C., about 15, 20 minutes from Virginia, in the area called Prince George's County, Maryland.
Prince George's?
Yep.
Okay. Prince George's County, Maryland.
Yep.
And you're up, your brothers and sisters?
Only child.
Only child?
Yep.
All right. What'd your parents do?
My father drove the Metro bus, which is the D.C. transit system.
Yep.
And my mother worked for the government, Internal Revenue Service.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I know.
So, all right. So this upbringing is not necessarily entrepreneurial.
No, not at all.
Would you say middle class?
Yeah, middle class.
Okay. So you have this as an example of, and a lot of times I've seen people in entrepreneurial households decide, children decide not to be entrepreneurial because their parents said, I've seen them decide to become. So it's not always the case that you're going to follow your parents' footsteps exactly.
Yeah.
Were you a decent student?
Yeah, decent student. I think decent would be how I would define my grades.
Yeah.
So I mean, I never failed a grade.
Yeah.
but there were times I was close.
Yeah.
So, yep. But decent.
Okay. Were you an athlete?
Yep. Played football for a little bit and was decent. But went to college because my mom told me I had to go to college. I really didn't want to go to college. I went to University of Maryland and Bowie State. It took me 7.5 years to get my 4-year degree.
Really?
Do not judge me. Yeah. Literally. Because I changed my major a lot. I got my 4.0 my first semester.
What was your majors?
I was pre-med, zoology, psychology, radio, television, and film, journalism. And so pre-med is what took me so long because I took all of my prerequisites for medical school in organic chemistry, physics, you name it. I took it. And the worst thing is maybe to tell your parents. I have to tell your parents, I don't want to do this anymore. And they messed up, Eric, because part of the curriculum, we had to go interview some doctors. And after interviewing about, I don't know how many it was, probably a half a dozen. And I asked them questions like, how many hours do you work? What I mean? How's the money work? And they started talking about malpractice insurance and residency and how long it took before they could really see, profit as a doctor, how many hours they worked, making rounds at the hospital. And it's like, dude, I don't want to do this. And I had to tell my mom and my grandmother, who was really disappointed. That's not what I want to do. So I went to my advisor and I said, what do I need to do to graduate? And she's like, if you take a major in PR, public relations, you actually have enough right now to graduate. I'm like, perfect. That'll be my major. And that's how I got out of school. 7 years. Yep. 7 years, man.
All right. So did you end up with student debt?
No, my mother paid for my entire, no student debt. So, and my mom and my dad got a divorce when I was about 11 or 12. And so my mom funded my college.
Really?
On her own. Yeah. She's
an
amazing woman.
So, we never talked about this, but what kind of an impact did that have on you as a only child when mom and dad break up? That's a pretty formative time.
Yep, it's tough, man. Because I blame my mom, blame my dad, and I was already an introvert, so I didn't have a lot of friends, and I was actually okay with that, by the way. So I didn't have a lot of people I could lean on. I had one guy, Mike Braxton, who was like my best friend from the second grade. And he was my neighbor, so I always went over his house. I said, I'm running away. My mom told me her and my dad was separating, but I ran away next door. So that was a tough time for me, man. But we pushed through, and my dad did the best he could. We didn't have a great relationship, but later on in life, we established a much better relationship.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough time. I never had to deal with that. My mom and dad stayed together. But,
that's so awesome.
But me and my ex, my first wife, when we broke up after 22 years, it was our kids were pretty formative ages. And there's still impact today. There's still kind of psychological. I mean, it was the right thing for sure.
No doubt.
And she's happy and
and that's important, right?
We're in a good place. Yeah. And, all that, but yeah, you start those all these things program you in one way or the other. Yep. They start to develop this computer in your brain of how you're going to deal with stuff, how you're going to deal with adversity, how are you going to stick with it because your parents didn't. Are you going to what are you going to do? How are you going to deal with all this stuff? So you go through. What were your interests in your teenage years?
What was my interest, like my hobbies?
Yeah, what were you interested
So
in doing?
funny thing is, when my mom started dating again, she dated who became my stepdad. I call him Mr. Robert at the time, was Bob. And he actually was very different from my dad. So my dad is a country boy. And so I was raised one way. Like I put my finger in my plate and pushed my food up on my fork. My stepdad was like, my mom's boyfriend at the time, no, you hold a knife in your hand, a fork. He taught me etiquette. He taught me the bread plate on your left and the drink on your right, so you don't get confused and drink someone else's water. So I learned a lot from him. And so you brought up hobbies.
So it's kind of like rich dad, poor dad in a way.
Yeah. So,
I'm not saying that they were rich or poor, but just different philosophies.
Just different. Not wrong, just different.
And you were okay with that type of coaching?
Not immediately, because he didn't have permission.
Right.
Chauncey Maxwell talks about the 5 levels of leadership. Right. So he wasn't at a permission level, but he felt like he was. But he had a title. He was my mom's boyfriend. So he didn't have permission. He had position, and it messed me up. Like my dad said the same thing would have been okay because my dad had permission, and so it took some time to accept that. But he worked hard at it. I have to admit, he worked hard at it. And so he's the one that taught me, to shoot rifles and water skiing, kayaking, camping. If you ever get lost in the forest, how to make sassafras tea, which side to treat the moss grows. I mean, it's amazing things that I would have never learned if it wasn't for my stepdad. So I really learned a lot.
What did he do for work?
He worked for the government.
Okay.
Yeah, he worked for the federal government. Okay. But he was just that outdoors adventure guy.
Yeah.
And so, so he raised Arabian horses. So I learned how to break in horses, no saddle. So all those things I learned from my stepdad.
Yeah, good life lessons.
What things from people from my community, nobody's like breaking in horses. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So it was very unique, and it expanded who I became later on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you do this, you go to college.
Yep.
What'd you do coming out of college? And when'd you meet Tracy?
So I worked at this mall while I was in college to make extra money. It's right up the street from the University of Maryland. It's real trendy men's and women's clothing because I've always liked fashion. My mom and dad said, we're not buying designer clothes. You got to go work somewhere where they sell designer clothes, and then you can buy it yourself. So that's what I did. And so this pretty girl walks in and asks for a job. She got the job, and she got the man. This is her story. So I met Tracy at the mall. We were both in college. Really? She was going to Morgan State. Yep. And
what was the store name?
So Up Against the Wall.
Up Against the Wall.
Up Against the Wall. Real trendy. Whatever's trendy at the time.
What would be the equivalent now?
So now it would be, it's a boutique trendy store. Okay, so it wasn't like a Neiman's, but yet they sold all designers like a Neiman's or Saks.
Sure.
So, so it would be anything you would think as high end. I mean, t-shirts were $400.
Wow.
Yeah, sweaters were $600.
Wow.
So the type of clientele that came in weren't all getting their money legally. So it was a tough place to work at. Like,
really?
It was tough.
Why was it tough?
People were getting shot in the food court.
What?
Yes. So a lot of people think I left my job because I became successful in network marketing. I left my job because my life was threatened. My mother said, I'm not losing my only child over some foolishness. She's
T-shirt.
She's like, you got to quit. And I was like, Mom, I can't quit.
I got to know the rest of the story.
You really want to know the story?
Yeah, I want to know the story.
Jeez, Eric. So
come on, I never heard this story.
Yeah, so this guy walks in and he's like, this is a different type of thief. He said, I'm the manager. At the time I graduated from college. I'm like, dude, don't steal the coat. Because I can tell. I know what these look like. I've been working
he's
here.
Leaning towards the door.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm taking the coat. What you going to do about it? So I'm used to people coming in, going in the fitting room, breaking off a sensor, bringing in a stroller with no baby and a blanket, putting clothes. So I'm used to that type of thief. This type of thief said, I'm taking it. What you going to do? So I'm like, bro, I'm going to call mall security. They're going to have to call the county police. They're going to arrest you over a coat. Is it worth it? He said, yup, and nothing you're going to do about it. And took my head and slammed it into the glass showcase. So I swung.
Break the showcase.
It didn't break it, but it hit my head.
Yeah.
And instinctively, because I wasn't as personally developed as I am today, so don't judge me.
Yeah.
And man, we fought. And my assistant manager, here's the worst part.
Was he armed or just fists?
This is fists.
Okay.
So here's a crazy part. My assistant manager, I grew up in the suburbs, so I'm not even like a fighter. Like, I don't even pretend like I'm from the inner city.
Right.
I have friends that are from the inner city. That's not me.
No.
Like, I don't even fight.
No.
But you're going to protect yourself.
Sure.
But my assistant manager was from what we would call the hood. So he came up and started stumping on the guy's head.
Oh, boy.
So there's blood. It's bad, Eric. So I hope your audience doesn't judge me. But so security comes.
How old were you at the time?
I'm 24, about to turn 25.
Okay.
Yep. And so security comes, of course, arrest the guy. But the guy calls the store the next day. And he's like, my wife answers because she's the cashier.
Girlfriend at the time.
Wife, we already married.
Oh, already married?
Yep, married.
Okay.
And working together.
Got it, all right.
So we had dated, got married, still working at the store. So the guy says, tell that manager dude if he walks out the mall, when he walks out the mall tonight, he's getting capped.
Wow.
And like shot, right? So she calls my mom. I come to the phone. My mom says, son? I said, yes. She's like, Tracy told me what's going on. Let us pray. I said, Mom, I'm at work. I can't pray. She was like, well, then don't close your eyes. And in this prayer, when she said amen, she said, you're quitting your job. I said, Mom, I can't. I got a house. Because I'd already had a house, cars. And she was like, quitting your job. I'm not losing you over some foolishness. We'll figure something out. So that's why I quit my job. So I quit my job. I answered that in the paper. It said, keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting what you got, marketing. I was introduced to
Say it again. What was the ad?
If you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you got. And marketing is what it said. We'll train you. So I answered the ad, went into an interview, and excuse me, losing my voice. I had a convention this weekend.
Yeah, I know.
So went in to the interview, and it was network marketing. It was water filtration systems, vitamins. I had no idea. I thought it was an interview. And took out my credit card, put $5,000 down.
Was that NSA back in the day?
Equinox.
All right. Yep. Bill Gould and the whole group.
Yep.
Good training ground.
Great training ground.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was my introduction. Didn't even know it was called network marketing.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, I started as a manager. I'm a manager at the mall. So
with the guy, did you ever see him again?
Never saw
in the
him
neighborhood?
Again.
Nothing.
No, nothing.
Nothing. You just got out of there.
I just got out of there.
Did Tracy get out of there too?
Oh, heck yeah. So she went on to get a job at Black Entertainment Television.
Okay.
Her major was in broadcast journalism. So it caused her to pursue a career that she probably wouldn't have pursued if that wouldn't happen. So everything happens for you. Nothing happens to you. And if it wasn't for that thief, yep. BET.
Tyler Perry owns it now.
Yep, absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, isn't that cool? So, and I mean, I can tell you that all these dots, like in our podcast, we have this episode called Connecting the Dots. And if I wasn't an introvert, my mom wouldn't have made me join the junior usher board at church. If I wouldn't have joined the junior usher board at church, I wouldn't have put on my job application, junior usher board, when it said extracurricular activity. And the only reason I got hired at the mall was because the guy was a minister who's a manager at this up against the wall store. And he's like, what teenager would put usher board on a job application? He's like, you got to love to serve. I said, I do, sir. He's like, you want to work here? I said, yes, sir. He said, I'll hire you today. So I got this job at the mall. And if the thief wouldn't have come in, then I wouldn't have quit my job. And if my wife wasn't working there, I wouldn't have quit my job, because my wife is the only person who could be a cashier and call my mom. No other cashier would have called my mom. And if I wouldn't have talked to my mom, I wouldn't quit my job, because the only person I can think of in this world that I would quit a job for is my mom. You know what I mean? Everybody else, I'm like, I'm not gonna quit my job, but I can't disappoint my mom. So if I wouldn't have quit my job, I wouldn't have been introduced to network marketing, and my kids wouldn't have had stay-at-home parents for the last 20 plus years. So it you know what I mean? Everything happens for you. Nothing happened to me. Even the things that I thought, man, why? You know what I mean? Why don't I have more friends? I'm an introvert. My mom worried about me, said, join your junior usher board. So everything connected for us in life.
Yeah, if you view it, that's happening for you.
That's exactly right.
You know, my toughest difficulties, I mean, you know, our paths have been aligned at different phases of our careers, and they're tough times, really tough times.
Yeah, no doubt.
Mistakes made, different things happen.
Yeah.
But it had to happen.
Yeah.
You know, for things to go where they needed to go, and to find your place in the world and how you're going to contribute. And I expect it to keep happening.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, just random things. Everything leads to one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Before we start getting into the network marketing piece, talk to me about your faith. How important was that for you growing up, in your early kind of career days and since?
Yeah, it is, in my opinion, because our team's philosophy is faith, family, finance. And a few years ago, we added fitness. And it's been that way. Look, it's nothing profound. We thought of this out at IHOP, International House of Pancakes, with 7 of us. We're like, all right, let's create a team name. What's our team philosophy? But faith has always been important to me. It was drilled into me at a young age. Not necessarily religion, but faith.
What's the difference?
And so religion, whether it's Christianity or whether I have Muslims on my team, and so they study Islam, and so Buddhists on my team, atheists on my team. But faith is believing that you're guided by a higher power. And so whatever is happening in your life, someone's looking out for you. And your path is orchestrated. There's a master architect. And without that faith, you believe, why me? Like, why is this happening to me? But with faith, you're grateful and thankful that God has put you in this place, because he's preparing you for something that you wouldn't be prepared for if you did it on your own. And so I do believe, and what I was taught growing up is that I do have opportunities and free will to make my own decisions. And sometimes those decisions aren't best for me. But because of my faith, I know that I'm forgiven So it allows me to forgive myself, and I can release things without walking around with sandbags. And some people walking around with those sandbags, Eric, and they don't realize they have them on their feet until they're removed. And they're like, wow, this is what it feels like to be liberated, to know that you're forgiven. So I grew up with that. And so I forgive easily, and I forgive myself easily.
That's a big one.
And that's helped me out with my personal life and my professional life.
Let me ask you about the team. Do you think if you weren't running a large network marketing organization, do you think you'd be as inclusive in your philosophy? Or do you think that the network marketing and community encouraged more embracing different people's paths and journeys without too much judgment? Because sometimes people in a particular form of religion would say, this is the one, all the others are
I know those people.
Yeah. And all those are bad, and they're going to hell, whatever. And I think it's a bit more of a mature and loving approach to be able to say, everybody's on their path, whatever that's going to be for them. And we're going to encourage that path.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And you're absolutely right. Network marketing has helped out with that. I mean, as a Christian, we have a worship service after our conventions typically. But there's also a Juma prayer for the Muslims on Friday. Like we actually make space for people to feel like they can be themselves in this environment, which is very unique. And I wish the world was more like it. So we have been blessed to have this community, Eric, that I'm so proud of, where people can come in and we have people who are gay and people who are straight and people who are different, like you said, religions and different races. And we have really been blessed to create a community, especially as an African-American. The majority of our organizations.
Is that a term anymore, or is it black now?
It's both.
Yeah.
So it's both okay now.
Just as a white guy, I'm just wanting to be educated.
It's both now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's moved all over the place.
Yeah.
And now it's both.
Okay.
Yeah. So the key is like you said, if you can find an environment where other people are exposed to other people who are not raised like them, and the leadership embraces it, it teaches those folks who have never been exposed how to be inclusive in a way that they didn't even know. That's not their fault. They didn't know what they didn't know. Like my kids, because of network marketing, were exposed to different races early on, different cultures, different religions. We sent them on missions trips because of the money that we were able to earn in network marketing. So that got them to see that they, just because they had more didn't make them better than anyone else. It means they had opportunities that others didn't have in third world countries. And so that allowed our kids to really embrace gratefulness. And
gratitude's such a big deal.
It was huge,
especially for kids, children of parents with money.
Yes,
that's a balance.
Yes,
to figure out, can they get to a gratitude space, or is it an expectation?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Space.
Yeah,
like, well, you got plenty of money. I have a problem. I shouldn't have a problem because you have money.
Yep.
That's why you did this work.
Yep.
Well,
yep.
We gotta help you.
Yep.
So you help yourself.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So you're right. Network marketing allowed us to, I think it expanded that for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was raised that way, but being put in a position to lead a diverse group allowed me to exercise with the knowledge that I had gained growing up. But then until you execute and apply it, you don't really know if that knowledge has really helped you to elevate others in the same space that you feel like I'm good at. Like, I feel like I'm pretty good at what I do. But unless I have fruit, am I really proving that I can show others how to do it? It's one thing to say I've done it and look, I've created this. But then when I look at the smaller groups within my organization and watch the leaders do the same thing, that makes me most proud.
Right.
Like, man, so it's the fruit I look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the beginning for me, it was all about ambition and desperation.
Yeah.
Kind of a mix.
Yeah.
This sweaty mix of ambition and desperation. Like,
I'm with you.
I don't want to live like this. I got to get to that next rank.
Yeah.
I got to get to a 6 figures a year. You know, I have the pin and I'm not qualifying at that thing that feels shitty.
Yeah.
You know, I have to change all this. Right.
Yeah.
So it was really self-oriented. And I actually think that's okay.
Yeah.
For a person early stage, you got to take care of yourself. Like the mask in the airplane, you got to get your mask so you can help others.
Yeah.
Get your own situation taken care of so you're not desperate.
Yeah.
And then,
you
know, because some people get involved for inspiration, some for desperation. Mine was pure desperation.
Yeah.
I just had to make something happen.
Yeah, me too.
But once you can get to the second piece, past the desperation piece, and it becomes, for me, the ultimate fuel is contribution. You feel so good being just a little part of somebody else's story.
I know.
Just a little piece. They tap you on the shoulder, say, you don't know me, but you know, 6 years ago, you said this, you did this, I watched you. And because of this, now I'm living my best life. And thanks.
And that's hard to explain to others, right? Because
they can't see it when they're in a desperation
that's
state.
exactly right.
They just can't. It sounds
exactly
like,
right.
you know, I got involved because I wanted to change the world. Right. Oh, stop it. You wanted to pay the bills.
Right.
And that's okay.
And here's a good thing about our profession is that you pay your bills by helping other people.
Yeah, you can't benefit by hurting somebody.
That's exactly right.
In other businesses, you can.
Yep, isn't that beautiful?
You can chop that other guy's legs out to get the promotion or, you know, whatever. Tell stories about him behind his back or what. All kinds of different ways that, you know, in Wall Street, every day there's a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
You know, here we don't really have losers.
I know. I love it.
It's amazing.
I love it.
So, all right. So you get involved, age 24?
25.
25 years old.
Yep.
Okay. You get involved 25 years old, and talk to me about your first thoughts when you saw the presentation. And I'm curious as to Tracy's thoughts, your parents' thoughts, your friends' thoughts.
Yeah. So I see this presentation. I don't know it's network marketing until I go home and talk to my father-in-law. So, and I shouldn't say home, went to my father-in-law's house. And because he was going to be my first customer.
Of course.
Right. So I'm like, Pop, got something I want to share with you. And Tracy was like, hey, if we can make money and can pay the bills. Again, she didn't know what she didn't know. So it was our own naivety. We just had no idea. So Pop was like, oh, this reminds me of some of the things I've done. He started naming companies like Amway and all the older companies, Shackley. He's like, yeah, I'm familiar with this. Let me help you out, son. And so he started giving me advice. Now, the way this is going to work. And he's like, so I said, well, are you willing to come to one of the meetings with me? And he's like, yeah, let me come for you and see what
I'll shoot it down.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. He came to the very next meeting with me. And he's like, well, it seems pretty good, but you know, you probably should get a job, son, as you do this, you know, because this is commission only. You should know that. I was like, well, I'm gonna give it a shot for just a little bit. I had a little bit of money saved up, so that's how my father. He wasn't negative, more so protective.
Yeah, sounds too good to be true.
Exactly. Yeah, but he wasn't. I mean, I've heard of people who are really, really negative, and Eric, he wasn't that way. I mean, he's a really kind guy anyway.
Sure. I'm not judging him.
So but my dad. It's very different.
Really?
Yes. He's like, Darnell, you went to college. Like, you know, you could be doing something. You're supposed to
be a doctor.
Exactly. So he was, you know, it's like, son, come on. And I'm like, I know, Dad, but this opportunity, I was bitten by the bug now, right? So I'm like, no, this opportunity for me to make unlimited income. I believe I'm worth more than $40,000 a year because that's how much I made at the mall. And my mom, so that was my dad. My mom was like, baby, you know, mommy supports you anything you want to do. And I love you. I just want to see you succeed. I want to make sure you're able to take care of your family. So that was her. She was very encouraging. She's always been that way. So she wasn't the least bit negative, just a little worried. My friends, I think because I had a leadership role at the mall, I had some influence that, you know, when I worked at the mall. So I was able to get quite a few guests out to take a look at it. So I had some success with getting guests out. Just folks, it was hard to get people to pay $5,000.
Yeah, you had the expensive product.
Yeah. So
or you know, that was back in the day.
Yeah.
When people would get, you know, what a stock of inventory.
Exactly, they used to call it front loading. Like
a stock of inventory, and then you know, part of their business would get that and then resell it.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
And what was happening, you know, between the company I started with, which was NSA, which is now Juice Plus, with water filters, you get 40 filters for $5,000.
Oh, cool.
And I'm sure it was something similar.
It was something similar to that. Yeah.
Sort of like sink top.
Yep. So you would buy it wholesale like 120. You would sell it for $200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing. 120 and 180, I think was the thing. You bought 40 filters, to get started. That was like the optimum way to be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
They had a little financing plan too.
Yeah.
To be able to, you could put like $240 down and $480 on payments. Interesting time back then because we both kind of started in the same thing, or the same product category, at least as far as core. What kind of success do you have the first 90 days?
I wish my memory was better. But I can tell you, we sold a few water filters. My mom has, 8 sisters. So I was able to sell quite a few. I was messing up people's sinks. It's not like I'm a plumber all of a sudden. I actually had to attach the daggone thing. Mm-hmm. And so I had some success on the product, not a whole bunch of success recruiting. So I made a little bit of money, but remember, I invested $5,000 and the trainings were like $300 for this training, $600. So the training was so expensive. But again, it was my preparation season. Yeah. And I don't talk negatively about that season of my life at all.
No, you learned a lot. I learned a lot of foundational,
no doubt,
truth.
Yeah.
And you know what I tell people in their first year, if they'll do so well if they just treat their first year like it's going to school.
Yeah.
That they might have a little bit of expense. Don't have any expectation on earnings. This is where you're going to learn.
Yeah.
You're going to learn something.
Yeah.
And a year later, then you can start having some expectations on earnings after you've developed some skills. People ask me, what advice do you have for somebody starting? Just focus on the skills.
Yeah.
If you get a foundation of skills, then you have no problem. You're going to have no problem recruiting, selling, building a team, anything. If you don't focus on the skills, you got to be lucky for forever.
Yep.
And luck runs out.
Yep.
So skills don't.
Yep.
I mean, if you don't use your skills, you can lose them. But skills, a foundation of skills is so valuable.
Yeah. So I probably, Eric, to answer your question, I probably made a few $1,000s my first year.
Wow. So were you full-time?
Yes, but I started doing side gigs. So like delivering phone books. I'm really aging myself now.
I get it.
Delivery downtown in DC. Mm-hmm. Like those guys you see riding the bikes and couriers. So whatever I could do part-time, I try to get a job, but they call me overqualified. Mm-hmm. I was even willing to like be a maintenance person at the airport at night so I could build my business during the day. They were like, nope, overqualified. So that was a tough time. So my wife was working. In fact, Tracy had 3 jobs at one point to support me while I was building full-time.
How'd that feel as a guy?
It hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt. Tough. You know what I mean? It was tough because I wanted to be able to take care of her. Mm-hmm. But again, the reason why we're so blessed to be in the position that we're in now, and I know people give me credit because I'm the one out front, but she's the one that paid that price in the beginning.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So,
and probably still is in some ways.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, I think it's so important for folks who are married to really enroll their family into the vision of, hey guys, here's where we are, but here's why we're doing it. Here's where we're going to be. And I was really blessed to have our kids never complained. And Tracy had my back when I wasn't home. It's like, hey, dad's doing this because we're going to be able to do this. Mm-hmm. And so they've always been supportive. My kids have been amazing the entire journey.
Yeah, right? You look like you have amazing kids.
Yeah, they really are. So that was year 1, Eric. And so 1, 2, 3, almost 4 years of going backwards financially. Wow. On a downward spiral. So we went from 2 cars to 1 car, lost our last car, house went up for foreclosure. So August of 1998, worst financial month of my entire life, is when the last car was repossessed. And it was Tracy's car, by the way. And so she walked out the house to go to work. She was like, came in screaming, someone stole my car. And I'm like, to myself, I know who the thief is. Right? Toyota Motor Corporation parking lot is where it is. And that was tough for me. And then that same month is when the house fell for foreclosure. So I had to call my mom. It's like, Mom, I need to borrow some money. And it crushed me because she said, baby, I'm retired, but I'm going to give you what I have. And she said, this is all Mommy has. Of course, I'll give it to you. And I felt horrible. Well, not too bad because I took the money, but bad. Mm-hmm. And that was my turning point.
It's like 1 month later, right?
1 month later.
1 month later, this is our paths cross. You know, our paths had been crossed for a couple of years.
Yeah.
By now, I knew of you and a little bit of your team.
Yeah.
And Brian.
Yeah.
Carruthers.
Yeah.
I mean, who he legend status like you now.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, he was like Mr. Real Estate guy.
Yep.
Doing this on the side, making a couple grand a month. You know, that was about it. And we had myself and a partner owned a company that that Darnell and Brian and others were a part of in the 1990s called TPN that sold to a company called Prepaid Legal at the time, and which is now LegalShield.
Yeah.
And that was a tough day emotionally because we were like in personal development heaven. You know, we had all these our superstar friends, and we went through the sale where we went from selling personal development to selling legal insurance.
Yeah.
And such a difficult mindset shift, you know? So we have this convention and a lot of tears, a lot of people like freaking out. And we had the same message for everybody, which is just give it 90 days.
Yeah.
Just give it 90 days and, you know, convert as many people from your team as you can.
Yeah.
And let's see what happens to your check. Let's see what happens to your business.
Yeah.
But, you know, keep everybody together during this transition.
Yeah.
And then we won't judge you if you make another decision, you decide to go someplace else.
Right.
So what happens in those 90 days for you? Because I know what Brian did in those first, he saw this as his opportunity. I'm going to go run.
Yep.
While everybody else is freaking out and running around, I'm going to go put my head down and go do this.
Yep.
Was that your same philosophy?
Yeah. So not as fast as Brian. So I came home after that event and thought, I have to tell my wife, here we go again, like for the fourth time in 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, no, for real this time, baby, it's going to work. That was my biggest fear is like, I don't want to tell my wife again. We really haven't made money in 4 years. And we were like surviving off of credit cards and her job.
So I understand. You went Equinox then?
Equinox, ACN, TPN.
Then TPN, our company.
Prepaid,
Then LegalShield now.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, and a lot of people like, they get hung up on, were you a person that's bouncing from thing to thing or whatever? Are you a junkie or whatever? You weren't.
No.
You weren't. You were just hoping for an opportunity to present itself that you could sink your teeth into.
That's it.
And it took a minute and you found it.
Yeah.
You've been there 25 years.
Yeah. So sometimes people move around before they find home.
Yeah. So you sit down with Tracy and say, okay,
I'm
hey,
like,
babe.
Hey, babe. For real.
I know you got these 3 jobs and, you know, we're on the edge of everything and we don't really have a place to live or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was driving my father's pickup truck. So that didn't make that relationship any better.
Yeah.
You know? And so this is like in prepaid, by the way. So this isn't like, you know, when I joined the company, we had all our success. I didn't have anything. And
but a college degree, a bunch of debt, and and a family to try and take care of.
That's exactly right. But I had work ethic, and I had a burning desire, and I wanted it so badly.
Like you say, connecting the dots.
Yep.
What if you had a whole bunch of stuff?
I know.
When that transition happened,
I know.
You know, would you have worked as hard?
I mean, no. Like this is do or die month. I don't know if anyone's ever had that month where you're like, if it doesn't happen this month, I'm not really sure what next month is going to look like. Like honestly,
it's like Elon Musk with that last rocket.
Yep.
If this one blows up, we're bankrupt.
Yep.
Well, it didn't blow up. That one didn't.
Yep.
You know,
that's exactly right. And that's why I was like, this has got to be the month. So in that moment, 7 of us got in the basement who had been with you, and none of us had ever really made any money. But again, all of us had work ethic. All of us had ambition. We're like, guys, this is it. We're going to give it everything we have. We're going to hold each other accountable. We're going to do 10, this is our goal this time, 10 exposures a day for 30 days. We're going to talk to 10 people, and none of us can do 9 or 8 or 7. Are we in? That was 7 of us. And we decided.
This is like October?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we all said, yes, let's go. And
how many of the 7 did it?
5 of us.
I was going to say, for sure, they're 4 horsemen.
Yep. And 1 more.
And 1 more.
Yeah, Linda Gray.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're like, we're in. Let's go. And that month, I did a little bit over $5,000. First month. I never made $5,000 in a year. So for me, it was like $1 million. I was like, thank you, God.
Yeah.
It was like the best moment ever in my life. You know what I mean? At that time, because I was so desperate. I'm like, thank you.
You had unfinished business. You wanted this to prove out.
Yeah. And then Tracy and I had an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time. In the previous year, I didn't even buy my son a birthday cake, which, you know, for me, it crushed me. And he never complained, you know, but for me as a dad, not to be able to do it was tough.
Not being able to provide is maybe the worst feeling ever.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're a dad or a single mom or whatever, feeling like you can't provide what you feel like you should be providing to your children is the worst.
I know.
Absolute worst.
Yep.
So 5,000 first month. What happens after 90 days? You got November, December now.
Yeah.
So you got a little momentum.
Yeah, I got a little bit of momentum, and I thought it was going to keep going up, but it didn't. So a big mistake in letting me networkers, right? They're like, oh, I made 5,000.
You did that 30 days. You kind of took the foot off the gas, thought it would just keep going?
Well, no, so I took my attention off of my personal production, put it on my team that I was building.
You started managing.
Started managing. So I was like, all right, got the team going now. And started putting it all on the team and stopped doing what I was doing to get to 5,000. So the check went down a little bit. And I was like, shoot, this isn't good.
Christmas time.
Yeah, so it was going up and down, up and down. But at least, I was still making some money, which is good, because down at the time was like 3,000.
Yeah.
So that's still better than what I was doing the whole year. So I don't want, you to think it was zero.
Right.
But this wasn't going up. And so then it was a week with no check, and a week was 400, a week with 1,100. It was all over the place. And then my 8th month, we cracked to 10 grand a month.
What was different there?
Nothing. It's what I did from month 1 through month 8.
So this is like
I learned consistency.
May or something.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened was
no big event happened. No. Just compounding.
Exactly. That's it.
Of disciplined work.
That's exactly right. So all the knowledge in the preparation season of 4 years. So it's really 4 years and 8 months. See?
Yep.
So it wasn't really 8 months. It's 4 years of going to events and learning how to promote and learning the skill sets and the mindset and personal development. So my resilience was different. I bounced back faster than ever before. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so the things that would have kept me down for a month kept me down for a day or maybe even hours. So I just got right back. So I would have a no-show, and Mike Humes would say, cool, man, who you talking to now, though? Who's the next person? And not just let it go there. He would say, after you talk to them, then call me back and let me know what they said. That's the type of workout partners I had. So, because, we all vent. And
he was on your team.
Yeah, he was on my team.
But he was holding you accountable.
That's exactly right. I worked with my team.
Culture again.
Yeah, I worked with my team when I did my upline. Brian was my upline. But I worked with my team we were mentoring each other.
Yep. Valuable thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you're 8 months in, you finally get to 10,000.
Yep.
Then tell me, walk me forward from there.
I mean, it exploded. It went up $100,000 a year, every year, all the way to the million.
And $100,000 a year.
Yeah. I did 90-something thousand. It was a machine. I did over $90,000. So almost 100,000 that first year. And again, I was like, I wish I did a little bit more, because I could say I made 6 figures my first year, but it didn't happen.
And that's a 99.
Yeah, it was like, and so that was 99. Yeah, and then 2000 went up another 100-something thousand. 2001 another 100-something thousand. So now I'm in my 30s. I'm at $300,000-$400,000 a year at 32 years old, and so it's all changed. And I was doing all the wrong stuff with the money, but that's a whole nother topic. But
what was some of the big mistakes you made getting the money early? Spending
I didn't have separate accounts. I had one account. So I didn't have separate. I didn't have a tax account. I didn't have a business account. I didn't have So I didn't have my investment account. It was just everything coming to one account. So, you look like, oh, this is all mine. Well, that's not all yours. So don't forget, you got to convince you to. Right, exactly. Yeah. So that was a big mistake. And, buying his and her, like everything I've done big, even up to now, when I think about it, it's always been for somebody else. This is my heart. So the first vehicle I bought was the first year the Cadillac Escalade came out for Tracy. Pulled it up in front of BET, where she was used to me coming out waiting for her. Or she was waiting on me to pull up, because we only had one car for our first year in network marketing. So I went from driving my dad's car. What color was the car? Yeah. White.
Did you have a bow on it and all that?
Oh yeah. So I went to the dealership. I'm telling you a story real quick. I went to the dealership, the same dealership I'd already gone to get the brochure to put in front of me so I can make the calls and be motivated by buying my wife this truck. My wife had stolen her dream unintentionally. So I was like, babe,
she'd done what?
I had stolen her dream unintentionally. And I'm going to tell you what that means.
Okay.
For 4 years, I kept promising. So we got to the point where I said, babe, if we were to go anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? If you were to drive anything, what would you want to drive? And here's how you know you stole someone's dream. She said, I just want to pay the bills. If I could only. When anyone says just or only, they are no longer dreaming. And so she's like, I just want to pay the bills, babe. I only want to be able to put food on the table for the kids. And I could not get her to dream. I'm like, babe, but let's say we were doing all of that. Then what would you want to do? She's like, I can't even think that far right now. Like, honestly, I want to go to the grocery store without a calculator. So she was no longer dreaming. So I had to dream for both of us. So I was like, babe, okay. And I just kept at it, Eric. And one day she was like, okay. I mean, I saw this commercial with a Cadillac Escalade. I like that truck. And I was like, that's all I needed. Went to the dealership. And, you know, salespeople are so daggone good, man. He was like, come in my office. I had no business in his office. He was like, we're going to run your credit. I let him run it. I knew it was horrific. Then he came back, right? He's like, yeah, we're going to need some creative financing. In other words, you don't get your financing here. Go somewhere else and bring it back from a credit union or somewhere. But I remember that sales guy went back a year later. And after making all the calls, and I've been saving money up. And so it's Christmas time. And I was like, I want that truck right there. Same guy. He didn't remember me, but I remembered him. And I don't advise this. It's not financially smart, but I had to pay most of it in cash because the credit was horrible. So I was like, how much if I paid cash? And he was like, I'll be right back. Came back, we made the deal. And I said, can I have that bow that's on it? And he's like, sir, you can have whatever you want. And drove it. My buddy and I drove to BET, parked out of the window, which used to come out and look out the window to see if I was outside in the one car we had. And went inside and told her boss, Vanessa, was like, hey, can you get this bag of confetti to Tracy? She's like, oh, she's back here. Come on back. I was like, no. Just tell her I was here. So Tracy told me the rest of the story. She said all her girlfriends came around. I was like, your man bought you something. What did he bring you, girl? So she's like, why was Darnell here? He never comes up to my job. And so at the bottom was a set of Cadillac Escalade keys. And she's 7 months pregnant at the time. So she waddles to the big window. And she's looking out in front of the grill of the Escalade like, and so she's crying and she comes out. She's like, how did you do this? No way. How did you do this? She's like, I didn't realize the truck was this big. I can't drive this. I said, oh, you're going to drive it today. We just paid for this thing. And it was one of the best feelings, Eric. And so she was crying. I was crying. It was a great moment.
What's fun also is that in front of her peers.
Yeah, in front of her peers.
Let me show you what my guy did.
Yeah. And her peers knew we weren't doing well because success has clues and so does a lack thereof. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So they knew we weren't doing well because she came in work crying the day that our car was repossessed.
Sure.
And her boss said, hey, come into my office. What's wrong? She was like, I'm okay. She's like, tell me, Tracy, what's wrong? And she just broke down. It's like, Darnell and I aren't doing well financially. The car was just repossessed. She said, go home today. And she was like, no, I can't afford not to get paid. She's like, don't worry about it. I'll pay you. Just go home. And which is funny because that boss, her daughter is married to my cousin. So it's just funny how this all works out. And so we were telling that story to her daughter. She was like, my mom did that for you? And Tracy was like, yeah, she did. She paid me on a day that I had to take off and didn't have to. So it's just little things like that, people are always there. God sent angels in our lives.
How long was it until you bought the car?
A year and a few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and if you're like me, and I think in some ways you are, sometimes we have to do something like that for our family. Yeah. We just have to. Yeah. It's not logical. Yeah, I know. Dave Ramsey wouldn't approve. Yeah. It was not in the structure that you should do it. No. You're overcommitting, but it's a representation of all the struggle. Yeah. And wanting to have something to kind of show for it. And then even if you got to go work harder for so long, my whole kind of philosophy was out earn my expenses. Yeah. If my expenses were up there, I'd have to go earn more and more and more and more. Yeah. But I had all kinds of self-worth sabotage that anytime I had more than my expense, I'd find a way to sabotage that back. So I was still struggling.
I used to do that too. Yeah.
Even at higher incomes. Yeah. Because you can struggle making $1 million a year.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
That's you don't even have to get that creative to spend $1 million. Yep. For people listening, I know that sounds weird, but it's true.
No, it's very true.
You can definitely do it.
Yep.
So, all right. So you give me some of the lessons.
Yeah.
Through your last 25 years.
Yeah.
When it comes to building team, building culture, what were some of the big, either defining moments or defining decisions or leadership lessons that you've learned in your journey?
Yeah. And it's so many, Eric. I often teach and coach based on my mistakes. One, because it allows people to see that you don't have to be perfect to succeed in this business.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest mistakes then?
So some of the biggest mistakes that I made is, one, trying to bring everybody with me. You have to be careful with that. I know many people like myself have a big heart, and you want to see other people win so badly, and it becomes the detriment of your own business. And you taught me that, by the way.
Can't carry them all.
Yep. And I remember having a conversation with you, and I said to you, I feel like I'm leaving people behind, though. And you said, are you leaving them behind, or are they choosing to stay behind? And it shifted everything for me. And that helped me more than you ever know. So thank you for that, because
I dealt with the same thing.
Yeah.
When I started, I had this whole philosophy of we're not going to leave anybody behind.
Yeah.
We're all going to be linking arms, going across the finish line together.
Yeah.
And I just found they got heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. They're just like, I'm okay back here. For their own reasons.
That's very true.
And Jim Rohn taught me, you can, if you're compassionate enough, and somebody's wounded, you can carry them on your back.
Yeah.
If it's a real desperate situation, maybe you can carry 2, but try and carry 5.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
No.
So people's decision to stay, if you understand that, it's so much better than feeling guilty that you weren't enough of a leader to get them to move forward.
Yeah.
Some people are just going to stop at a certain level, and you have to let them do what they're going to do.
Yep.
Tough.
And it happens at all levels. So as a lesson to everyone watching and listening, it doesn't stop. It's not like, once you have folks on your team who are making $200,000 a year, oh, I'm good now. I've got 20 people making $200,000 a year. No, you're not good. Because that same group, they're not going to be the same group. Not all of them to help you to get to your next level if you want to continue to climb. Unless you're good. If you say, I'm good with this, and you'll still have some diminishing impact or effect.
Yeah, there's no such thing as you're good and you're done.
That's exactly
Build
right.
it once and have it forever is an absolute myth.
That is
it
exactly
does not
right.
exist. Everything decays. Everything falls apart. Everything has to be rebuilt.
So true.
I just watched this movie recently called Blackberry. Remember Blackberries were the thing?
Yep.
They had 45% of the global cell phone market, and today it's 0.
Wow.
45% of all of it.
Wow.
And 0. So nothing lasts forever.
Wow.
Things show up.
Yeah.
People change.
Yeah.
But I think, and tell me if you agree with this. I think part of the reason why some people stop, they and Harlan gave me, pardon me, I got the same frog in my throat that you do. Harlan gave me a really great, Harlan Stonecipher, he's passed away, but great CEO of LegalShield, founder. He told me, cause I was like, we gotta get these other people engaged. We gotta get these other people go to work.
Yeah.
I was saying to him, and he was like, Eric, let me just tell you something. From experience, distributors in network marketing, for the most part, there are exceptions, but for the most part, they are an asset to the company for about 5 years, and then they just become an expense. The sooner you accept that, the better.
Yeah.
Like there are some that reinvent, like you've reinvented over and over and over and over and over for strong reasons, but a lot will do that push, and then they'll just ride whatever that is for as long as it's going to be. So in this journey, we kind of have to do our best to persuade and give people a stronger vision. Like you're really good at vision. So I think you've gotten people to stay and to be consistent longer than they would have, which is, I think, our job. Our job is to get people to do a little bit more than they were going to do without us. Consistently over time. Right.
It's so true. And you're right. I mean, I think we're in rarefied air in terms of having the longevity of leaders stay engaged.
Yeah.
Like in the community that we created, because it's like a family. And you can create that. It's hard for people to leave the family.
What are some of the cultural decisions that you made
Yeah.
Because one that I noticed from you, okay, just from the outside looking in. One is professionalism. You, like from your stepdad, do this, this.
Yep.
When your team shows up in the room, they look different as far as how groomed, how they're dressed. They look like business people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Not just like whatever, casual people.
Yes, sir.
They're on purpose. They're intentional, right?
Yeah.
And I think that matters.
Yes, it matters.
To their posture,
Yes.
to their belief, to
Yes.
to everything.
Yes.
The other was your development of edification within the team. There was not a lot of first names thrown around.
Very true.
It was Mr. Self, Mr. Humes,
Yes.
Ms. Beverly,
Yes.
Ms. this, Mr. that.
Yeah.
Even with not just with corporate people, but to each other,
Right.
which was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And what does that do compounded
Yeah.
times 100,000 times?
Yeah.
So you see the self-respect that shows up, and you see this look from prospects like,
Yeah.
they just called this guy Mr. Self.
Right. Right.
They must know something I don't know.
Right.
So it created some curiosity, but it also created some respect, and it created a sense of community. So those were a couple of the things from culture that I think you've just been exceptional at. What are the other things that your team you would say you're known for culturally?
Yeah. So one, you're absolutely right. The level of respect is important. It diminishes gossip and being judgmental. When you're able to look at other people as future superstars in the business, no matter where they currently are. And I feel like in our space, sometimes people don't start respecting others until they've hit high levels. But if you learn how to treat people for the person who they're becoming, not the person that they are, it allows people to tell themselves a different story about themselves. And that's what's happened. So when you can shift the story that someone's telling themselves about themselves, they start to then attract the person that they see themselves as. And so that's why we started the edification early. Like, if this person was $1 million a year earner, how would you respect them? How would you respect their time? Let's treat them like that now, because they're going to become that person. And people started believing that because we firmly believed it. It wasn't just talk.
Yeah.
Right. And that's different too. Right. Because if you're just saying it because, oh, this is what they're telling me to do. But we worked hard at infusing that into the community where people really believe that, look at this person now and shake their hand today, because the line may be too long 5 years from now.
I love that.
You know what I
so
mean?
good and so smart and intentional and kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take somebody who's struggling in a situation and you start introducing them formally.
Yeah.
They go, you know what? I'm not this loser.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Looking for a free meal or something.
Yeah.
I'm a future star.
That's exactly
and
right.
And they see it in me.
Yeah. And it's how you define failure too. You've taught me that too. So what happens is that I had a guy, I'll just give you an example. He said, Mr. Self, I feel like I'm an imposter. I'm in this imposter syndrome because I'm telling people that they can join this company and they can win, but I haven't won yet. And I feel like, I've been in this business for 12 years, is what he said. And I still haven't accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. But yet I'm telling my new recruits, you can do this, you can do this. And I feel like an imposter and I'm a failure. And I said, can I ask you a couple of questions? Which is a big lesson for all leaders watching this, or future leaders. Always ask questions. Otherwise, you make statements. It comes across accusatory and it comes across like I'm bigger and better than you. So I just ask questions. Well, let me ask you a few questions if you don't mind. He's like, sure. And I said, what have you failed at? He's like, I said, in the business, what have you failed at? And he was like, well, I haven't gotten my ring yet, which, in our company, you get certain rings when you hit certain levels. And that's okay. So that's one thing. You haven't earned the ring yet. What else? He's like, my income is not where it wants to be. And I said, okay, so it's really just income then, because when you get the income, you get the ring. So far we're just at income. What else? And he was like, well, I haven't hit the rank that I wanted to hit. And I said, okay, so if you had a certain income, would you care what rank you hit? I said, you can call me whatever rank you want. Pay me $1 million. I promise you, I'll allow you to call me anything you want. So we're still at income. What else? He's like, I can't really think of anything else. I said, okay, tell me all the things you feel you've won at in this business. Like, what things make you feel like, man, I'm winning in life? He's like, I have some of my best friends that I've met in the business. I've taken some all expense paid trips in this business. I'm a better son to my dad. We had kind of a strained relationship. We're better now because of personal development. I mean, Eric, he went through 20 things like this. Like, he didn't even think about it. And I said, so hold on. You got one thing over here and 20 things. I'm sure if you went home, you could think of more over here in the winning column. To me, it feels like you're winning, not losing. You're not failing. He's like, and he starts crying. And I said, you have defined failure and winning wrong. You've been winning, my friend. You haven't been failing. You haven't hit your income goal, but you've been winning along the way. Mm-hmm. You got all these touchdowns over here. And he's like, I said, so when you go to prospect now, don't talk about your income, because that you are going to feel like an imposter. Just say, look, I can't wait on Tuesday for you to meet some of my partners. Some of the best friends I've ever had in my life are part of this community. I've got mentors who continue to share with me their mistakes and their successes, which is one of the things he says he's so happy to be around. I've taken some all expense paid trips. Talk about that. And he's like, and his recruiting went up, by the way, because he was winning all along. He just told himself he was failing. So that's what we're talking about.
Kind of apologizing when he talked to people.
That's exactly right. So this is that team culture we're talking. We're talking about culture, helping people to see that they're really winning. You know what I mean? They're winning at $100 a month.
Yeah.
And how do you get them to see that? That's the key. Otherwise, as leaders, sometimes we're like, look, you need to be doing more.
Right.
Well, be careful, because no one wants to live in a neighborhood called failure. So unless you can create this environment where they feel like, I'm winning at 100, I'll be winning even more at 300, but I'm not losing at 100, I'm winning. And that's, that's the culture that you have to be intentional about and celebrate all wins. I mean, every win. Even activity can be a win, because activity leads to the production and the results. So if someone says, well, I only got one guest to show up. Even if the guest didn't start, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. And they're like, all of a sudden you can see they feel good. At first they were complaining. They were like, I only got one. I'm like, you know how many people didn't have any guests? You had one, man. You're doing it. They're like, thanks, man. I appreciate that, Mrs. Self. That's the culture. Yeah. Got to celebrate that.
Another thing that I've seen you do very well is after being around this profession for 35 years and working with coaching a lot of different people from a lot of different professions, you know what blows up most organizations? The inability to manage problem children. Or becoming a problem child yourself.
Yeah.
Ego.
Yeah.
In many forms.
Yeah.
So it just blows them all up.
Yeah.
I mean, you even look at $1 million earners.
Yep.
They get sideways with 2 or 3 of their top leaders, or they go a little nuts, because the income made them think that they had to do something in a different way.
Right.
But to be able to hold an organization for 25 years, now it changes, of course.
Yeah, sure.
I went on this tour of Jerusalem, and the tour guide, and I noticed that the walls are all different. So I asked him, I said, tell me about these walls. They rebuilt 17 times around the city of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
The only part that was original was that western wall, the praying wall, the wailing wall, they call it. That was the original. Everything else had been built up, torn down, built up, torn down, built up, torn down. Internal, external, outside forces, inside, civil wars, all these different types of things. So inside every organization, there's going to be a few that are part of that western wall that would, still there 25 years later.
That's a good point.
But not everybody's going to make it. Yeah. It's going to change.
Yeah.
But regardless, you have to have, as a bit of a shepherd, the ability to identify somebody who's going to create problems within the organization as quick as possible and either correct the behavior or let them know that this is not welcome.
Yeah.
So talk about some of the tough lessons. You don't even have to give names or anything, but just the lessons of 25 years of managing ego.
Yeah, man. Woo. That's a big one. And I've not always been as good as I am today at handling it. And still not perfect today. I never will be, but I strive for excellence.
Sometimes people just ignore it. I'm going to focus on production, not politics. And
I've never been that guy.
And bigger.
Right? I've never been that guy.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful again for my season of 4 years before the success I had, because I'd really gone to a lot of leadership seminars and really developed myself as a leader before I had a team to lead. And so what happens is people decide when I get there, then I'll become a great leader. But they're the demise of their own team. Their team goes from 50 to 2, not because of the level that they've hit, but because of their lack of leadership at that level. And so that one's a tough one, Eric, because I always think back, think, what could I have done differently to cause a different result as a leader? Like, how did I mess up on that one? Because there's always something I could have done differently.
Sure.
So what I've learned and how I handle it today is, number one, I'm first to apologize, because there is something that I could have done differently to perhaps help you to feel differently than you currently feel. Maybe you feel like I'm insensitive. I don't include you enough. I don't recognize you enough. And so you have to start recognizing yourself. Right? You start to feel like, well, I'll do it then. I'll let people know who I am since you're not, right? So hey, if I have not recognized you enough, I apologize. Is there some way that I can help you to feel as important as you really are? Because you are an amazing asset to our organization. And so anyone who's in my organization, they know I apologize more often today than I ever have. And it doesn't show a sign of weakness. I'm a very strong leader, but it shows a sign of strength, because I'm willing to accept my own faults and things that I can do better. And so I teach that. And in fact, I was in the car with my son, and my oldest son is an exec in our business. And so I hear him on the phone. He's like, hey, let me take that one. That's on me. I should have made sure you knew when the next Fast Start class was, because the guy didn't hit a qualification in a certain amount of time. And he said, but he could have said, you know what I mean? Hey, look, it's online. It's in your back office. I text you the date. But instead, he took it on first. He's like, hey, look, let me take that one, because I'm sure I could have over communicated the date of that particular class, and I did not. That's on me. But we do have a next core rank that you still can hit and earn a bonus. So let's focus on that, and I'll be happy to hold your hand and walk you right to that position. How's that sound? And the guy was like, man, thank you so much. It went completely different because he apologized. And so, and he sees that, right? It's what's caught by your kids and people close to you, and that just what's taught. So that's one of the things, Eric, that I found to help out with the egos that exist is I apologize. And sometimes my wife doesn't like it. She was like, you got to stop taking it on. I'm like, no, I'm not taking it on. You know, I just want them to know that perhaps I could have done something differently, because I could have. However, I also learned that sometimes I have to have these serious conversations as quickly as possible.
People will accept that apology and say, yep, it's your fault. And then they'll go crazy.
That's exactly right. So I've also learned that doesn't work in every case. And so in some cases, I have had to have some very stern conversations, never in front of other people.
This is against the values of our organization.
That's exactly right. And that's it. That's it. And so I remind them that, you know, this is what you joined. Because we do a good job, probably not the best job, but a good job of letting people know, here's our value system of our organization. And you decided, hey, look, I'm excited. You said you were excited about it. You know, is that still the case?
Right.
Right. And it's like, yeah, I still believe that, man. So the things you're doing don't line up. They don't align with that, though. You know, and here's why. No, you're right. Right. So I'd call them out on what it is that they say. You said that this is you. This is not you anymore.
And what happens if they either don't agree with you or they won't talk to you?
So it's been rare in my case. I've connected people with other people.
Yeah. Find somebody they'll listen to.
That's exactly right. Connect them with someone else, and perhaps they can have that conversation.
Find a bigger hammer.
Yep, that happens. And sometimes, look, check this out. Sometimes it's not even like upline, because I know we don't want to spread any negativity in your organization, but sometimes the relationship they have with someone, the better relationship is within the organization. And because of that, they're more likely to feel comfortable talking to that person about the real issue and that person can help address the real issue, because sometimes the issue that comes to you as a leader is not even the real issue.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
And so you're addressing something.
A lot of times it's really old.
That's exactly right.
A lot of times it's something that happened before they're 10 years old.
So true.
That they haven't even really consciously acknowledged.
Right. Yep. So true. Yeah.
Well, that's all good. Let me ask, can I ask you about race?
Yeah, please.
All right. So as an amateur, somebody who's constantly trying to learn, what percentage of your organization is Black?
Probably about 75 to 80%.
75, 80%.
Yep.
And I remember we had a conversation a long time ago, and you're like, yeah, I'd like my team to look like the rest of the world looks. And my response was, why? Because I mean, what is the United States? 15%?
Yeah.
Something
like that. Yeah.
So why would you want 15% and have 85% look like the rest of the world?
Right.
When your community, your natural network feels more comfortable when they have numbers.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. No, true.
So I like that you've leaned into that. I like that you've found an honored space, a safe space, a celebration, sharing values, all that stuff. I think
that's gotten me in trouble, though.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But what I want to ask is, what are the pros and cons of that? And secondly, I'd love if the world was colorblind, but it's not.
Yeah.
And there's still work we got to do.
Yeah.
And as I like the fact that network marketing does tend to wash a little of the color out, as far as we're all participating in this community, so we find ways to relate to each other and talk when we normally wouldn't have, and hang out when we normally wouldn't have. Yeah. So I think that's all healthy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just, what lessons have you learned as a leader? And secondly, this will sound weird, but what advice would you have for white people to be able to be as respectful as possible? I hate the word tolerant, because it seems like it's some sort of compromise or something. Yeah. But really to connect in a meaningful way, and to celebrate our differences, to celebrate our uniqueness in the world. Without, I don't know, without being phony and fake.
Yeah.
Like this phony sincerity
exactly
type of thing.
Yeah. So when we first started out, there was not a mission to create an African-American organization or Black organization. It was like we tell every single networker who joins, make out a list for everybody, put your family down first. My family happens to be Black. Now, my great-great-grandfather is white, but he had already passed, because I could have had diversity from day one. That didn't work. So it's a true story, by the way. But where I went to school, I went to a HBCU, historically Black college and university, Bowie State. That's where I ended up getting my degree. Tracy went to Morgan State, which is an HBCU. So 99% of people that go to an HBCU are Black. So on my list, most folks were just Black. So we show up, Eric, this is so funny, at this prepaid event the second year. So the first year was just me and a handful of the guys that you know. And the second year, I came back at like a top level of 20 executives, so 20 other people at top levels, which means they all had a lot of folks. So we came back with, a couple of hundred of us. And so I remember this young lady, Tiffany, worked at the home office. She's like, is this like a revolution? It was so funny. And I said, oh, it's just my tea. Like, is that a revolution? But even though the product, I think, because it's about equality and access to justice, it resonated in the Black community, certainly. So that helped out too. Yeah. But so I wanted to say that if, initially it wasn't like, let's do this, let's go out specifically and talk to the Black culture. It just happened that, my team was Black, so their family was Black, and it just, spread throughout the country that way into Black communities, because they were their families who lived in Charlotte and, Birmingham and different places. The second thing is that I live in Prince George's County, born and raised. It's the #1 affluent African-American county in the entire country. So all the United States.
Really? I thought it was Atlanta.
Nope. That's set #2.
Okay.
Yep. So, so I was around a lot of folks who did well, you know what I mean? Politicians, lawyers, you know, because you're in the DC area. And so that, because I was able to recruit some influential people, that also helped to spread in the Black community. So those two things favored us. And then I happened to have some really good, loyal friends who, you know, we built it together. So that was helpful. So then, you know, everybody knows somebody who, whether it's at their job, who's, you know, not Black. So there was some diversity, and folks like, we gotta, and that's what I was telling you. It's like, well, maybe we should diversify and not leave any money on the table. But it was tough because part of the challenge is to bring someone who's not from our culture into a room that's mostly Black. To be honest, sometimes they were uncomfortable.
Same thing in reverse.
That's correct. But sometimes not, because a lot of Black people are used to being the only one.
Yeah, I suppose.
You know what I mean? Yeah, so
even more.
Yeah. So when I went to University of Maryland, I was used to being like only Black person in the class.
Yeah.
But you know, it's hard to find a white person who can come to a HBCU.
Right.
So you know what I mean? But you'll have a Black person go to a predominantly white institution.
Yeah. My feeling the whole time watching you build this was double, triple down.
Yeah.
You know, dude, just
that's what we did.
This is an asset. Go nuts.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
That's what we did. And so but part of the challenge was I would go into a market with the team and we weren't accepted. And some people were vocal about it.
Really?
Like, don't bring that rah-rah stuff down here. We don't like your kind.
Wow.
Black people don't call my house.
Wow.
I was doing 3-way calls. So it's just rare for someone white to ever get that comment in network marketing.
Yeah.
Like, no one white calls my house.
Yeah.
But people felt comfortable telling me Black people don't call my house.
Wow.
So, you know, so we dealt with some of that in building it. And even anonymous calls that said, you know, don't be a guest speaker, don't come down. So my aunt was like, you're not traveling down south. So when I first started traveling, and you and I were still connected, I just never complained about it. And it was anonymous. They would call, no caller ID, and just hang up. Don't come down here. We don't want your kind.
Wow.
So that's why. So a lot of people thought I had security because like, oh, D Self is like becoming too big. He's got guys around him. My guys were like, no, we're going to protect you.
Huh.
So that kind of started a whole
it's just
servant
so
leader.
Difficult to even imagine. I mean, this is some years ago, but I remember in Nashville, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was at a Cracker Barrel and I went to go pay. And I was standing behind a Black gentleman, you know, well-dressed guy waiting to pay. And the lady was like, no, you first, to me. I'm like, no, he's in line. I said, you first. I'm like, no. And the gentleman turned around and said, go ahead, please. And I'm like, really?
I know.
That is a thing?
Yeah.
What is going on? I am embarrassed about this.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, do you feel like there's progress? Or do you feel?
Yeah, no, there's progress. And it's progress.
What do we need to do as a culture in order to be able to
accept the truth?
Yeah. What's the truth?
So the truth is that it still exists. And I think most are like, no, you know, that was a long time ago. So thinking like slavery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sure, there may not be slavery like in terms of shackles,
yeah,
but there's still so much inequality and people are not treated the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have to have conversations.
Lack of fairness is a huge deal.
Yeah. It's you know what I mean? And so I have to have certain conversations with my sons that other dads may not have to have.
Like what?
Like, hey, listen, if you're being pulled over by a police officer, do not take your hands off that steering wheel.
No matter what.
No matter what. If they ask, say, do I have permission to go? I'm reaching into the glove compartment right now. Is this okay? Right? Do not just move. So those are conversations because I, growing up in college, have had a gun pulled to my head. As a college student, didn't do anything wrong. They say they thought the car was stolen. It's not a stolen car. You know what I mean? So my point is, I know what it feels like to have, and I'm not knocking law enforcement. I have buddies that are law enforcement. I'm just saying it still exists. This isn't 100 years ago. So we have to admit that, man, there's still some untruths out here, and people, we just aren't, all cultures aren't willing to admit it. And so that's why we hide history, right? Oh, don't teach that, because that may promote equality. Like there's just as many Black inventions as white inventions, but the credit was given to someone white, not someone Black. Let's tell the truth now. Let's get to a space where we can just tell the truth. You know what I mean? That's all. Yeah. So that would be helpful.
You can kind of just feel everybody, you know, there's some healing going on. There's some understanding going on. And some older generations are just going to have to go, you know, as they go.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's happening. Yeah.
As they age out and the younger generations come in and they're a little bit different. And also be a little bit kind if you feel like somebody's overreacting. Yeah. Be kind to what you don't know what their journey was about, what triggered anything. A quick story and we'll wrap up. I was in the 4th grade and one of my favorite teachers, Mrs. Crusoe, she did this exercise. She said, we're going to have an exercise on discrimination. So we're going to separate the girls and the boys. And on day 1, the girls are going to get discriminated against and the boys are going to have all the privileges. Yeah. You know, girls won't be able to do recess and girls won't, you know, be able to have snack time and whatever, extra homework, all that stuff. And then the next day the boys will. So we're like, oh, okay, no problem. Right. So she does girls' day, right? Girls are crying, you know, boys are laughing. Right. Second day, she does like 10 times more to the boys than she did to the girls. And now the boys are crying. Now the boys are like, this was not the same amount of discrimination. Yeah. You were supposed to discriminate fairly. Yeah. Equally, right. So I was crying. I was so mad. Yeah. She was doing all this stuff. I was just so mad. They did this and now they're laughing at us and all this other kind of stuff. So it gave me a tiny little taste of a lack of fairness. You know, I think
that's so good.
If people feel like they're being treated fairly or it's equal justice, equal opportunity, equal anything. One thing I appreciate about network marketing is at least the computer is colorblind. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, it's very true.
You know, so as you put in business, as you put in productivity,
I love that.
Everybody can go as high as they want to go, and there's nobody going to stop them. Yeah. I'm not saying that there isn't racism inside of organizations or how people are treated, but I'm just trying to get better every day. The reason why I asked the question, you know, because I haven't lived that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking. I think that's important, right? You said, how can I do better? Right. And I like that, right? Because, you know, unless you have friends who are Black or African American, you may not be comfortable asking that question. Right. So we have a friendship. So you can ask that question and you know it's not going to offend me because we have a friendship. Right. So you can ask a question and then I can share with you. You're like, man, thanks for that. I didn't even think about that, right? So I think that's important. That's how, you know, folks who have friendships with other races, you can ask, hey, is this offensive? If that person's Jewish, hey, and that way you know, because I've made mistakes and didn't know it. And then sometimes it's not even racially motivated, but because of what you've gone through,
it's a trigger.
You're triggered. Right, it's a trigger. It's that, look, I'm in Vegas. Yeah. I'm in your home in Vegas. Yeah. Just yesterday, my kids took me out because we weren't all together for Father's Day. So they're like, Dad, when we get to Vegas, we're going to take you out to this restaurant. So they booked it all, 6 of us, right? Tracy and I and our 4 kids. Get to the restaurant. They said, hey, we know you have reservations, but we're 30 minutes behind the reservation. No problem. I said, it's a table right there, though. It's a hot top. We can just sit there because it's like the bar area. Yeah. We can just sit there. No worries. They were like, no, we don't have enough servers over there, so can't seat you there. I said, okay. So it'll be about 20, 30 minutes. I said, okay, you want to call me? No, just come back in 30 minutes. Cool. So the kids are like, we're going to go shopping. So they left. And so Tracy and I are just standing there talking. A white family comes up of 6. And I'm listening because, hey, reservations. And like, oh, yeah. She tells a guy who's at the front check-in too, can they sit at that table? And he's like, hold on, I'll be right back. Comes back and is like, yeah, they can sit there. Ask the lady, you guys mind sitting at a hot top? She looks at her husband, hey babe, is it okay if we sit at the hot top? He's like, sure. I take a step forward. But before I can say anything, they see me stepping forward and they look at me and they say, she looks at the other guy, how many people do you have in your party? I said, 6. I want to say just like them, I have 6, but I said 6. Oh, okay. And so they told the family, hey, step to the side for a minute, please. Where's the rest of your family? So they went shopping, but they'll be right back. We'll call them now. So Tracy called the kids, went and sat down. That may have had nothing to do with race, except them just.
But it's hard not to look at it with that filter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hard not to look for
right.
places where things are.
I wonder if, you know what I mean? Because still in my head, like I wonder if.
Yeah. That would drive me nuts.
I know. I just don't know. Because I have dealt with it,
especially when you're thinking about your family,
right? I know, a
little bit more.
Yeah. So, but I work on that, right? I work on not immediately thinking it's race, and it's not easy when you've dealt with it.
Sure.
You know. So anyway, thought I'd share.
No, it's good. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, and we went a little longer than I think you even had time for.
Oh, no worries, man.
But for our audience, I'll let you have the last word.
Sure.
Give these people, it's everywhere from newbies to part-timers to full-timers, and even some people not involved in network marketing. They're just entrepreneurial, listening for ideas and insights, strategies. Prospects are listening, to see what this thing's all about.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for them after being involved now 25 plus years?
Yeah. So first of all, find your passion and see how this space can fuel that passion. Like network marketing itself doesn't have to be your passion, but it could be the vehicle that fuels your passion. Like for an example, I'm so passionate about my family. Like anyone who knows me knows I'm going to brag about my family. I love family. I love being around my family. I don't try to travel without them. I try to travel with them. So that fuels me, right? That's my passion. So what network marketing allows me to have that. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm saying. People have to, and I've had to redefine this, Eric. So in the beginning, as you said, it was ambition. It was like, I got to pay these bills. I'm behind. This girl, Bernadette, is a bill collector, kept calling the house, and I knew her name. That's how bad it was. And I got to prove her wrong. She said I didn't love my kids because I didn't pay my bills on time. So it fueled me. But then I had to change because I didn't have bill collectors anymore. So I had to redefine, well, what's my why now? Well, my kids were getting older, Eric. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you're gonna be in college soon. And the worst thing that could ever happen to me, I felt at the time, was for my kids to say, Dad, I got into whatever school their dream school is. And I say to them, son or my daughter, I'm so proud of you, but you're going to have to choose a different school. Dad can't afford that. It would crush me. So that fueled me to I didn't have a tuition fund for the kids. And it fueled me to put 6 figures in that. I mean, it drove me. And it also helped me to budget better. So I'm like, I'm not spending, that's going to the tuition fund. And that fueled me, Eric. I mean, I just kept funding it. And then then my kids are in, it's only 2 are still in college, 1 is scholarship. So I'm like, well, that's not, and I had to redefine. So I've always reinvented. So if someone's watching this and you're not doing what you should be doing when you don't feel like doing it, you haven't identified your real reason why. If you don't feel like doing it and you don't do it, it's because you haven't really figured out what's fueling you. If you don't feel like doing it and you still do it, I don't care what level. If you're at $1 million a year, if you're a brand new person, if you're like, I don't feel like doing that today, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because I committed to do it, you obviously have figured it out. Find that thing and nothing else. How many people quit won't matter. How many times that you've missed your goal won't matter. Because what matters most is what you said you were going to do, because that's the thing that's fueling you. Find that thing and everything shifts.
Darnell Self, I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom today and throughout your whole career.
Yeah,
the ripple effect of all of the stuff that you've done and all the things that you've learned that you've passed on is going to last beyond both of our lifetimes.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
Thank
you for your mentorship.
Oh, it's my great pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. So that is our conversation with Darnell Self. As always, if you liked it, please do me a favor and subscribe to this channel and share this with a friend. I know that they'll be glad that you shared it with them. Until next time, go out there and make your life amazing.